Some brands offer you low finance, or cashback, or servicing.
Renault don't do ors. We do ands. The Renault Kadjar with 1.91% APR and €1,000 cashback and 3 years servicing, saving you thousands. Renault, the brand with the ands. Visit your local Renault dealer. Finance is made under a hire purchase agreement. Terms and conditions apply. Deposit required. Subject to lending criteria. See Renault.ie.
Welcome into the Sports Memo NFL Every Game on the Board podcast with our guest today, NFL expert Teddy Covers. Teddy, welcome into the pod.
Hey, great to be here, Drew.
Teddy, great to have you. Happy Friday to you. It's November 30th here. We got the top half of the NFL Sunday card to go over. Teddy's been good in NFL all year long, 60% NFL year to date, and even more impressive in my opinion, 163, 120 losses, 163 wins, 58% NFL since 2015. Knows what he's doing this year, knows what he's doing long term. So hopefully we'll get you on the right side here, some sides and totals of the NFL card. We got a special coupon code today, Teddy29 at checkout for Teddy's 3-day all access, which gets you through Sunday's NFL for just $29. You also get his college football Saturday championship weekend, both Friday and Saturday, college basketball and NBA with that package. It's Teddy29 at checkout. Teddy, first game up, 3-5-1, 3-5-2, Indianapolis, Jacksonville. Looks like Indy laying 4 on the road, 47 the total.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a couple of questions to be asked here with the Colts, laying more than a field goal on the highway. And of course, these two teams played just a couple of weeks ago. Indy dominated the first half and then got shut out in the second half and needed a late turnover in order to escape with a 3-point victory. And that was a push. You know, that was less than a month ago. Now, Indy's laying 4 on the road in Jacksonville. So it speaks to volumes about how the markets are responding to these two teams right about now. That being said, you know, and for the Jags, you can make an argument. I understand Cody Kessler is no Blake Bortles, which is saying something, you know, because Bortles isn't any good. But there's a reason Kessler's been on the bench this whole time. And his only previous starting experience came in that 0-16 season for the Browns. Kessler had 8 starts. He threw 6 touchdowns, and the Browns went 0-8 in those ball games, most of them double-digit defeats. So he's not a guy who I'm convinced is going to be able to come in and have an immediate impact in terms of, hey, he's going to chuck the ball all over the field and all of a sudden this Jags offense is going to be loaded, especially without Leonard Fournette this week, suspended after last week's fight that, you know, probably cost the Jags the game in Buffalo. But though, I mean, the one case you can make for Jacksonville is that, you know, it's a new offense coordinator, it's a new coach, and they don't have film on this guy. And we see it all the time in the NFL where, hey, you don't have film on him, boom, next thing you know, he comes in to light somebody up, and the following week he doesn't have quite that same level of success. Because opposing teams have an idea of what the game plan is. That may not be the case for Indy this week, but certainly when you talk about two teams headed in opposite directions right now, you know, Colts were 0-5, now they're 1-5, now they're 6-5, and they've earned that. You know, Indy has been the defense has impressed me. Certainly the balance on offense with Marlon Mack has impressed me. The line has played well. There's a lot to like about the Colts right now. The question here, of course, is whether this point spread is high enough or too high, representing the difference about how these two teams have changed since their last meeting just a couple of weeks ago.
Teddy, we got the Sunday Nighter. 3-5-3, 3-5-4, LA Chargers at the Pittsburgh Steelers. 51.5 the total. Looks like the Steelers laying 3, minus some juice at Chris. 3.5 at a lot of other shops. How you looking at this one?
So it's really an interesting game because Melvin Gordon is one of the. I'm an anti-running back guy in general. I'm never like, oh, this back's worth everything. You know, Melvin Gordon's worth something to the point spread, and the markets are saying he's worth nothing. They're saying that Austin Eckler is going to come in and be every bit as good. And look, you know, Eckler's numbers are okay. You know, he's a little guy, 5'9", 200, but he does break tackles. And, you know, you read the quotes from Anthony Lynn. He's like, yeah, he'll be fine as our every down back. It's no big deal. And, of course, Keenan Allen's their third leading rusher. So if Eckler gets hurt, they're going to be in trouble without Gordon here. That being said, the Steelers' defense, they've held their last 7 opponents, Paulie, to either their season low in yards or their second season low. This defense has been really good, and of course, it's Pittsburgh off a loss. It's Pittsburgh off a turnover debacle loss. You know, all of which, you know, were they -4 against the Broncos, and 2 of them were just, gut wrenchers. The fumble that goes out of bounds in the end zone, it's a touchback, and then the interception at the end of the game from Big Ben that doomed the Steelers backers once and for all in that contest. But, certainly Pittsburgh, awful loss has been a good bet. Pittsburgh in December at home has been a good bet. Pittsburgh with the defense laying a field goal or less has been a good bet long term. There's lots of trends pointing to the Pittsburgh side of the equation. Worth noting from a weather standpoint, you worry about the LA teams traveling to Pittsburgh in December. Actually, the forecast is supposed to be pretty reasonable. Highs in the upper 40s or even 50s in western Pennsylvania on Sunday. So it really doesn't look like it's going to be a big issue. It's a hard game for me. I'm not involved in it. I do believe the Chargers are good. I also believe the Chargers are the type of team that, as we've seen 300 times, this year, last year, recent years, long-term history, they shoot themselves in the foot in big games. They really do. And Phillip Rivers has done that over and over. And, of course, it's the Chargers coming off an easy win where everything was perfect last week, and you worry about that. And certainly from a point spread perspective, I'm a little bit lower than I thought that it was going to be. So I think the Steelers bounce back. No surprise if Pittsburgh gets the money here, but I do expect a competitive contest. I'm not looking for LA to get run out of the gym, even against that underrated and surprisingly feisty Steelers defense.
Good stuff, Teddy. We got 355-356, Carolina, Tampa Bay. Looks like the Panthers, they've been struggling in, the last month or so, laying 3 on the highway, some 3.5s out there. 54 the total, Teddy.
Yeah, on the one hand, you can make a pretty good case for Carolina. The Panthers have 3 straight losses, and it's not like they played poorly. The bad game at Pittsburgh on the short week, which teams have bad games on short weeks. We see it all the time in the Thursday night road team. We saw it again last night, where the Thursday night road team wasn't prepared to play, even though they had 7 days in between the two contests. It's just the nature of the game. But the last 2 games, the loss to Detroit, where Ron Rivera made the ill-fated decision to go for 2. And then last week, when they moved the ball up and down the field, 220 on the ground, 256 through the air, only 5 incompletes for Cam Newton. But they made mistakes when it mattered most and didn't come away with the win, a 3-point loss against Seattle. So it's circle the wagons time for Carolina. The markets are certainly reacting to that. Cam Newton's quote, asking if someone would have told him 3 weeks ago that the Panthers were on a 3-game skid and be in danger of missing the playoffs. He said, I wouldn't have believed it. I'd have called you an idiot. Here they are. And some of it's defense. This squad has struggled to stop the pass in recent weeks. Some of it's random chance. It's just been a couple of breaks that haven't gone their way. But they're facing a Bucs team that they got off the schneid finally with a comfortable win over San Fran last week. Jameis Winston didn't turn the ball over in that ball game, and he ended up with big numbers. But the way the numbers came about, he wasn't trying to be Fitzpatrick. He wasn't chucking the ball deep and throwing into coverage. It was all a lot of checkdowns, a lot of shorter routes, a much more conservative game plan for Tampa defensively than what we've seen. Bucs have an interesting dichotomy. They've been a strong over team. Every road game this year they've been over, but at home they've been trending under the total. Carolina, clients and I cashed an over ticket with them last week, but they've been trending over as 4 of the last 5 have gone over the total. So if Tampa has changed their stripes, and we're seeing some market support for that as the money's come on the under for this contest, if Tampa's changed their stripes, this might be a lower scoring game than expected.
Teddy, you think there's anything to that as far as trending under at home, like the home crowd helping out the defensive line, or weather issues, or anything going forward to take away from that stat?
So some of it's randomness. Some of it's the fact that they've been on the road and trailing, and in Tampa on the road trailing, they're going to chuck the football around. Some of it's Fitzmagic. Some of it's bad defense. Some of it's random, but there's there's certainly a thought process among some sharp bettors that the warmer weather teams play unders at home. The offensive line wears down in the heat. Obviously, that's not a big issue at this time of the year necessarily for Tampa Bay, but there may be something to that.
Okay. We got Baltimore at Atlanta up next, 49.5 the total, 1.5 the Falcons laying in Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
And remember, we talked about this game on the opening line report on Monday, and I was like, boy, I mean, I would think Atlanta be the favorite here. The Ravens opened 2.5. There was a 3 at the Westgate on Baltimore. Well, all that money is come and gone. It's been a pretty steady, Falcons money throughout the course of the week. Atlanta's a clear chalk. Now, of course, Joe Flacco's not going to play. The market's not sold on Lamar Jackson yet. I don't blame them. The Ravens, they've gotten their season back on track with a pair of wins against very weak defensive opponents at home. And of course, last week's win, it's fairly fraudulent. Certainly the cover was fairly fraudulent for the Ravens. Let's say, the mistakes that Oakland makes, they had a defensive score, they had a special team score. The Raiders' mistakes gave them 14 points, and they won by 17. So the question that I have, and I've been trying to get a feel for it all week, it seems like Atlanta's still fired up. Atlanta's coming to play. Atlanta coming off that, Sunday night debacle where they turned the ball over repeatedly in the red zone against New Orleans. This team's been solid at home all year. This team is certainly capable of putting up points in bunches against an opponent that may well be limited offensively. So I can understand the Falcons' support. But, at the current number, you've missed the best of it by a pretty wide margin. They still win and cover, you're fine. But, when you start taking, laying 1.5 and laying 2 with teams that you could have caught a +2 or a +1.5 with, it's just not a good long-term betting strategy. So I did lean Falcons. The market's moved there, and that's, going to keep me on the sidelines here.
Flip favorite in that one. We got 359-360 up next. Cleveland, Houston, 47 being the total, Teddy, and looks like Houston laying 5.5 at home.
Yeah, and this really is a one-question game. The question is, how do the Browns respond to success? We know what Houston is. And Houston, again, they haven't been great at winning games by margin. I do worry about the spot a little bit for the Texans coming off the big Monday night win. And, they've got Indy coming to town next week. And they haven't been a great team in terms of covering big margins. I've got Bill O'Brien, 3-8-1 ATS at -3 or higher his last 12 tries. So that's not this isn't necessarily the Texans' role, and you do worry about the spot. But in my mind, the bigger question here has to do with Cleveland. Can this team, and it's a very young team, they have a rookie quarterback, they're coming off 2 very successful games against the Falcons before the bye and out of the bye, getting a bunch of demons off their back with a road win at Cincinnati in blowout fashion. Is this team mature enough to come back off of that win, focus, and prepare appropriately for this week? If they are, they can give Houston a game. What we've seen out of the Browns since the brain trust of Hugh Jackson and Todd Haley get fired is Baker Mayfield's good, and the offense is moving, and Nick Chubb's running the football. And, this offense has been night and day compared to was under Haley and Jackson. 9 touchdowns, 1 INT. And certainly that Browns defense, that hasn't been a problem area for them at any point this season. They've been a good road team. They've been capable of going and hanging tough. But are they mature enough to handle the situation? An interim coach, sometimes that's a big concern for Cleveland backers this weekend.
Teddy, we got 2 games left. The guys, remember the coupon code Teddy29 at checkout for his 3-day all access. Get you all the way through Sunday for just $29, less than $10 a day. We got Buffalo, Miami, AFC East battle here. Buffalo traveling down to South Florida. Total of 40. Looks like the Dolphins now down to 3.5 pretty much across the board. I'm seeing 4 at South Point, Teddy.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised, that we've seen this type of move towards Buffalo this week. And from my perspective, this is an enormous game. 5 season win bets, 3 cash before Thanksgiving. Big ticket cash before Thanksgiving. San Fran, the Eagles under is already cashed, and KC over that was pretty well a right side winner. But I've got 2 that I'm sweating, and that's Miami over and Buffalo under, both at 6.5.
This is a big one.
It's a huge game for me, so I did hedge and play a little Bills money line earlier in the week as a pure hedge. Nothing to do with it because, the season win bets are pretty big. This is something that I didn't bet all of it, but just a little bit on on the Bills money line here. And of course, you look at Buffalo last week, a completely different team with Josh Allen at QB. This is a playoff team last year. McDermott had them fired up last week, and no, they weren't better than Jacksonville. They were as good as Jacksonville, and they had found a way to win the game. Miami has so many injuries, and now the receiving core, the latest group to suffer multiple cluster injuries last week. And what a devastating loss where they have the Colts on the ropes in Indy and let it get away. And then, 6-5 to 5-6 is an enormous difference for a team trying to sneak into the playoffs, for a coach trying to save his job. Miami's better with Tannehill than Osweiler, and the markets, showed us that at the open this week. Like, all right, well, Josh Allen's worth a little bit, but Ryan Tannehill's worth a lot, and that's why this game opened as high as it did. And of course, the Dolphins' offense looked pretty good in Indy with Tannehill behind center and the ability to throw downfield without, holding your breath and clenching your teeth every time Osweiler throws downfield. You're just afraid it was going to be a pick, and many of them were. You don't have that same feel with Tannehill, but in terms of laying a price with Miami and their defense, I can certainly understand why all the money's coming to the Bills in early week betting action.
All right, Teddy, we got last game for this segment, 363-364, Chicago, New York Giants. Looks like the Bears, 3.5 on the highway. A lot of fours in Vegas. We got 44.5 being the total.
Yeah, I'm going to write up the Bears as a free play. I haven't done it yet, so hopefully it'll be up by the time this podcast is posted. And if not, I apologize. I'll have it up at some point in the next 24 hours. But the bottom line is, the Giants had their, they had the awful start. Everything's lousy. Back-to-back wins, and all of a sudden a path towards relevancy. And then they got Philly on the ropes last week, and they're up 16 in Philadelphia. And then they let that game get away. And they let it get away in just stupid fashion. Here's Saquon Barkley. He's got 111 yards at the half. Let's make sure we don't give him the ball at all in the second half. I mean, just silliness from the Giants. And, of course, when you talk about a bad matchup, Giants offensive line and Eli Manning against a defense that creates more turnovers than any in the NFL and puts all kinds of pressure on opposing quarterbacks. You'd say, oh, well, you can't predict turnovers. You can predict turnovers here. Giants will not have a clean game. The Giants will turn the ball over here. And, of course, with Chicago, the big question, Trubisky or Chase Daniel. Trubisky's been downgraded to doubtful. Daniel's been named the starter. And, no, he wasn't great last week in Detroit. That was a miserable spot. I remember they were coming off the Sunday night game with short prep time with travel, and they still got the win because that's how good the defense is. I think Daniel will be better this week. He knows Nagy's offense. That's why he's in Chicago. That's why he's built for this role, and I think with extra time to repair, again, the Giants, they had their chance. The window's open, and when you let go of the rope in a game like that and lose, I really worry about their ability to bounce back this week. So I do like Chicago in this game minus the spot, and I will be posting that, as I said, as a free play. You can read the full analysis up at sportsmemo.com.
Teddy, 60% on the year. Good stuff. 58% since 2015 in the NFL. Great choice for your NFL betting service. Teddy29, the coupon code at checkout for his 3-day all access. We'll get you tonight's, Saturdays, Sundays, all the sports as far as college football, NFL, college basketball, and the NBA going on right now. Teddy, thanks for your time. Guys, we'll be right back with Robbie Vino to finish out the NFL Every Game on the Board podcast.
See the all-new Ford Focus, winner of the Irish Small Compact Car of the Year 2019 at the Ford Innovate 191 sales event. The Focus ST line features Ford Sync with touchscreen, smartphone mirroring, ST line design kit and cruise control. And right now you can order a 191 Ford Focus with an amazing 7-year warranty, 7-year roadside assistance and 2 years free servicing. All from just €23,525. See the all-new Ford Focus at your local participating Ford dealer. Offer ends December 10th. Ford Innovate, driving better value for you. Ford, go further. Price excludes delivery and related charges. Terms and conditions apply. See Ford.ie for details.